Yo, what's going on? It's Bebop here, and I'm going to be going over the rapier today for people that are getting into the rapier, or maybe you're intermediate with the rapier. I'm going to keep it very simplistic. We're going to go over the basics. We're going to go over the bleed rapier build. We're going to go over the evade rapier build, and then we're going to go over the third one, which is the bleed evade, which is a little bit less known, it seems like, in the community, but it is super fast DPS. Now, the rapier is the highest DPS weapon in the game. I don't know, with the update yesterday, that hatchet might be the new one, baby. 10k light hit. Oh, my Jesus. But let's go over the rapier, right? The basic setup, and don't worry about my stats here, because I made myself pretty weak. I'm actually going to redo all my stats, so I don't do much damage here. And with the rapier, if you go to weapon mastery, this is your basic bleed setup. It's got Tondo, which is going to apply a bleed, 10% weapon damage for 12 seconds. Then you're going to flurry, which is going to add another bleed once you select this finalized dot down here. Another 10% weapon damage bleed for 12 seconds. Then you'll apply another bleed with a Tondo. So you'll go Tondo, flurry, Tondo. And then that will be your 3 bleeds. You want to stack up 3 bleeds on the enemies, because with this weapon, the whole point of it is to get 3 bleeds on the enemy, and then you'll pop the bleeds with the flourish and finish. Now, popping the bleeds means you're going to basically take all of the, like, let's say 130 damage bleeds, you 3 of them, and you're going to pop them for, once you have the ultimate selected, 150% of the rapier bleed damage instead of only 110%. So it can really boost up the numbers. If you watch me speedrun, you can watch me unplug. You can watch me stream tonight around, 7 to 8 p.m. Central throughout the night. And I main the rapier. We're going to be running Genesis. And you can see how I do it there. But you basically want to stack up 3 bleeds. So this would be 1. The last hit of the flurry would be 2. And then that would be your 3 bleeds that you can see there. And then when you pop them with the flourish and finish, see the 3 numbers that came up right there, the 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. That's basically a 9,000 hit. That's what you're going for with enemies. All right. Let me go over here where it's a little bit quieter here. This guy, he's whooping it on over there, but he's scaring me, bruh. But let's go over here and look at it again. Now, you would go ahead and Tondo. Flurry, that's your 2 bleeds. There's your 3 bleeds. And then you'd pop them, boom. So basically 3,000 per bleed there. So another 9,000 hit. Now, what some people like doing is going flurry, Tondo, and then they go back to flurry. Now you got your 3 bleeds again, and then you can pop those, which look to be a little bit more damage. So it's up to you. Now, the Tondo does apply a good amount of weakening to mobs. It's really, really good for mobs. And on backless enemies, let's say Scylla in Laz and Chartis, also the final boss in Laz, the snake boss in Tempest, any snake boss, even in Genesis, the last boss, they do not have backs. So to get a higher bleed, a lot of times you start off with Tondo first, then you can go flurry, then Tondo again. That's one way to do it. Also, you could go to 350 dex on those enemies without backs for the extra crit chance. But I don't want to go into stats too much yet. I want to just basically show you one more time. Tondo, flurry, Tondo, stack the 3 bleeds, and then pop them, boom. Right, and then all the bleeds go away once you pop them. Now, that's basically what you'd be doing in the dungeon the whole time, and your numbers are going to be way higher than what I'm showing you right now. That's the basic bleed rapier build right there. All right. Now, what some people talk about is the evade build. Okay, evade build is usually the great sword person in the group that uses the great sword and great axe for the mobs throughout the dungeon switches to the evade rapier for bosses. The evade rapier, in my opinion, is the fastest DPS in the game. You would set it up how I'm about to show you right here. Now you can have variances to this depending on what you like to do, but This is basically the most evade rapiers mostly go with this setup, and you would select the ultimate. Actually, you would do this, select the ultimate. And so now you have what you call the evade setup. So you would evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, flurry, light attack. And that's basically what you would do the whole time. Evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, flurry, light attack. And that would be how you would boost your damage. So the rapier on this side, the special, instead of adding the bleed popping, because you're not popping any bleeds on this evade side, deal 30% increased damage on your next light or heavy attack performed by an ability. You should never heavy attack with the rapier, but on your next light attack, which they also call auto attacks, you'll do 30% increased damage, ends on hit or after 3 seconds. So it's hard to show you here in camp. There's another place I could go to, place a camp down and show you the evade a lot faster. And I might do that here in a second. But the point is, this is the evade setup. Now, your person with the great sword and great axe will usually switch off on boss fights to the evade rapier. It's just way better, faster DPS. You got to be very careful with the evade rapier because it's so fast that a lot of times you'll grab aggro from tanks. If the tank does not know how to pre-taunt the bosses, if the tank is running way too high a con, if the tank isn't heavy, you'll probably get aggro with this. So you might want to use a secondary weapon to start off with, like a fire staff, to go ahead and get the burns going. Let the tank build up the aggro real quick. Not the button I meant to press. And then you could switch, and you would basically start off by flurry, auto, evade, auto, flurry, auto, evade, auto, flurry, auto, evade, auto. I mean, that's basically your attacks right there. So after you perform an ability, let's say like an evade, and you hit, that's 30% more damage per hit. That's what the special is over here on the rapier setup. Deal 30% increased damage to your next light. Don't ever a heavy attack with the rapier, but next light attack, or what they call auto attacks. It ends on hit or after 3 seconds. Now, another way to really boost damage is having Omni Evade on your clothing, which I have right here. Omni Evade will add 11% damage for 2 seconds after using Evade. So every time you use Evade, which is that, then it would apply 11% more damage on top of the 30%. So when that comes back up right here, and then you would hit like that. It's hard to do it on these dummies because you kind of move around. But yeah, you could really stack up some bleeds and some damage. Now, the life ring rapier that you can farm over here in Eden Grove, if you go to the Elysian Shrine, you come down here to Torto Riven, you can farm the life ring rapier, which I have on me. Let's see if I can put it on or if I'm in combat. I am in combat. The life ring rapier, you would put omnidirectional evade, 20% damage for 2 seconds after using evade on top of the 30% for the ultimate. So you're definitely going to be doing more damage, as you can see there. Now, if I spec this out right, it's going to be a hell of a... I've actually hit a 10k light attack with this setup before. So you can really... You're in charge of your own empower too with the evade build. As you can see right there, anytime you evade, you have your own empower. So it's really fast DPS, really strong. Get ready to have a bunch of aggro. And if you do get aggro, once you evade, flurry... Oh, tank, I got aggro. And the boss comes to hit you, you riposte. That right there is going to block 100% of any damage that comes your way from any enemies. So that is one of the most OP perks in the game. And that's one thing I loved about being Evade Rapier until the desync combat system came out. But anytime the boss gets ready to hit you, I don't care if it's, you know, the snake boss in, you know, Tempest or Scylla or Chartis, you just riposte, you're going to block whatever hits you right there. And not only that, if you riposte it in time and they hit you, you're going to stagger them with a return attack. And also you're going to get empower bonus 10% for 3 seconds, and you reduce the cooldowns of other rapier abilities by 20% when landing the riposte. So it's such a good build, man. If you main greatsword, you need to have evade rapier on for bosses. It's just going to add so much DPS. With a main bleed rapier and a main evade rapier set up on bosses, it's the fastest way to melt the bosses, and you'll see a huge difference in your group if you utilize this. Now, let me show you the evade bleed rapier setup. So the evade bleed, which a lot of people don't run. There are people who run it. It's best on bosses, not on mobs, but I'm still somewhat getting used to it. I bounce back and forth from the traditional to this one. This one is a lot faster DPS, right? It's about 7 or 8 seconds faster DPS in total than the traditional bleed setup. But what you would pick is you would set it up like this. And let's see what else. These 2 dots right here. It's the exact setup you would go with right here. You could put the abilities in whatever order. But now, instead of just being an evade rapier and not popping bleeds, and instead of using Tondo to get your first bleed and then the flurry to get your second and then Tondo to get your third, you would basically just evade, auto attack, flurry, auto attack, evade, auto attack, flurry, auto attack, evade, auto attack, and then flurry, and then you see the 3 bleeds right there. Now you could pop those bleeds. So you would stack up the 3 bleeds based on 3 flurries. Now, let me show you again on how that would work. You start off with the flurry to get your first bleed, auto attack, evade, auto attack, and then flurry, auto attack, evade, auto attack, flurry. Now I have 3 bleeds set up, and then you pop them like that right there. And that right there is the fastest DPS. When you have that on a boss, ooh, get ready to melt, bruh. Ready to melt, bruh. But if you have, just know, if you're bleed rapier and you're popping bleeds, if you do have the greatsword teammate that switches to evade rapier on boss fights, you are no longer going to, I call it number 3. You're no longer going to 3 bleeds. You're only doing 2. So you would do flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, flurry, and then you could pop. Then you would only be popping 2 bleeds because your third bleed would not pop even if you try to stack one because the other evade rapier. So when Geist and I run together, I'm main rapier, bleed rapier through the dungeon. He switches to evade rapier on the bosses, which you'll see tonight. And so I know going in the main part of the dungeon, I'm stacking 3 bleeds. And then on the boss fights, I'm only stacking 2 bleeds. So you need to know that as a rapier player. But those are the 3 options. Now, if you stat your stuff right, and I'm going to go back to traditional bleed here with the finisher, and also on the finisher I have thwarting strikes. I was testing out some damage numbers with the Nature's Wrath chest piece versus keenly empowered. Keenly empowered is going to be still your highest DPS, so I would go with keenly empowered on the finisher, not thwarting strikes. But I do love me some thwarting strikes because every ability that you do, you have grit. So it's extra damage every time. The empower can be, you know, not active at times. Or if you use, like, basically, if you have your Tondo and you hit your first hit and you got your empower going through the kingly empowered, and then I see a lot of people heart rune, that's going to take away, you know, your empower of the kingly empowered. So be careful about using a heart rune when you get your kingly empowered on the weapon going. And also when you have kingly empowered on the weapon going and you're using the abilities, you need to watch for the kingly, you know, empowerment to pop up because it cools down every 10 seconds. There's a lot of stuff going on within 10 seconds. And so you might not be paying attention and you might end up canceling your kingly empowered in the middle of fighting and not realize it, you know, making your keenly empowered perk on the weapon null and void. So be cautious of that. On setting up the attributes, well, if you have nimble coat, I wouldn't go anything into strength. I do like doing the 5% bonus for the strength because a lot of times I don't get the cooldowns fast enough and so I need a light attack or auto attack, you would call it. If you have nimble coat, you would never need to do that for the main bleed build unless you're going evade bleed. But let me start off with just a basic bleed build with the Tondo. You would always want to go 350 int, 25 focus, the rest in dex. If you run con, then you know you can go to whatever. I don't know. I would say 50 max. But the 350 intelligence dot, 10% ability damage is huge. 7% damage to targets below 50% health is great also. And 30% duration to apply damage over time effect. So that's why you want to go with the int over the dex mostly. Now, the only time you would want to go 350 dex over the int is the backlist bosses, like I was saying earlier, or if you need more crit chance, because you'll get the extra crit chance while empowered. So you would set it up like that, and you would take your food. Obviously, I'd have more stats if I took my food, but I just want to show you real quickly the damage difference, and that's without taking food. You could choose if you want to run the 48% food or the 44. I still do 44. 48 is just too expensive. We're going with the traditional bleed build. All right, so the damage numbers, and this is on a, you know, little statue thing. So you're up to the 8,000s popping all 3 bleeds. So let's see that again. Now that's without honing stone. You know, obviously if you have a coating for whatever enemy type you're fighting, you know, it adds quite a bit of damage. Let's just add a common honing stone and see where we're at here. Got the 3 bleed stack, pop them, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000. So you can see the damage increase and why the rapier can pop for such high damage. If you start off with flurry and then Tondo and then flurry, you can see it's about the same damage. I struggle going back and forth at times with which I want to do, lead off with Tondo first or flurry. I think Tondo's best to lead off with, especially in mobs, because you're going to weaken all the mobs and have bleeds going on all the mobs. And then you can just pop like that. A lot of times though, when you don't have nimble coat and you have a toon leather pants, if you start off with flurry and then you go Tondo, there's always that second where you need a light attack to get your flurry back. I messed up the cycle there, but so if you start off with flurry and you go Tondo, there's that 1 second where you need a light attack and then hit. So with the nimble coat, which reduces all your cooldowns by what, 7% or something, you wouldn't have to worry about that. So nimble coat is really important if you want to be ultimate bleed rapier setup. And I'm still grinding for it on PvP somewhat and haven't been able to get it. But hopefully that makes sense on the rapier. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll go over it some more. Don't want to make it too complicated, but that's pretty much about it. That's the 3 different bleed rapiers builds, and I would always use the finisher or the life ring. Finisher is just so good, so good. And now that they buffed the deadly flourish, you don't have to have the health requirement where they had to be below what, 40% health or 50% health. I can't remember what it was. Now it's just 41% more base damage on this, which they were going to add the bleed to, but they decided not to because it would have just been way OP. You definitely wouldn't need Tondo then, because the Tondo, you can see, is about 1810 right there. But if I go with this, it's 27. Can you imagine the bleed on that with flurry, and then you add another bleed and pop? Oh my god. Woo. So yeah, the rapier's OP. You don't need to add that anyways. But that's it, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can stop on my stream every night around 7 p.m. Central, and I'll see y'all then. All right, have a good day.